Saturday morning. This is a series where we investigate regional issues with regional policymakers. We're in a quest for great solutions to regional challenges. Border Crossings is produced by the Mid-Peninsula Access Corporation, providing community access media services in Palo Alto, East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and Atherton. And since we are joined today by our two mayors of Palo Alto and Menlo Park, Mayor Gary Fazzino of Palo Alto, Mayor Paul Collachi of Menlo Park. And if you see Mayor R.B. Jones of East Palo Alto, send him right over to the studio. But I think he had to be on a little vacation time today. So normally we have all three mayors, and today we're going to have for the next hour, a great discussion with two of the neighboring mayors. What I would like to do first, as we normally do it, is our update segment. So give us a brief rundown of what's come up before your councils, what big decisions, and I know you both are just about to pass your next year's budgets. So if you've seen some big highlights about new trends or changes from the last couple of years, let us know that as well. I'll start with Mayor Collachi of Menlo Park.
Great. Well, we recently passed a housing action plan, and in our housing action plan, we gave our housing commission $40,000 to hire a consultant and look into solving some of the housing problems that we have in the Mid-Peninsula. We're not going to fix it, but we'll look to expand our BMR, our below market rate program, and we'll focus on the word affordable with the true meaning of affordable to see where we can do affordable housing.
True meaning is going to be a good definition for us to get into.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
We also are completing up the first phase of our smart growth, which is our community visioning. So we completed our workshop. We will have a study session in 2 weeks to go through the results of what we found there, and that will set the course for phase 2, which is our implementation phase. We discussed the Bayfront Expressway. The state has $31 million that they want to spend to expand and improve that, and we wanted to work with them to make sure that they get the hot spots and do the right thing there. So we've done that. We have our recreation master plan. Its phase 1 has finished up. That's going to give us a blueprint for the facilities that we'll build, our recreational facilities citywide. And we'll be coming back in September to hear the 3 or 4 options that committee recommends to us. We passed a leaf blower ordinance, so that's off our plate.
Wait, did that get done silently?
No.
I didn't see that. After all the hearings, what's the final leaf blower ordinance?
We basically adopted the recommendations that were advocated by the leaf blower proponents and the gardeners. So we're going to mandate quieter blowers at a particular certification level, and we've adjusted hours slightly. And that
so there are certain hours it's okay to use any kind of leaf blower?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then basically, so the only restriction is what hours you're allowed to use it.
Hours restrictions and the type of blower that can be used.
Oh, and the type of blower.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the quietness of the blower.
The blower, does it have to be electric?
Nope. If it's a gas blower, it must have a particular rating called ANSI, American National Standard, and it needs to be rated at a level of 65 dBs or less by the manufacturer.
Okay. Great. Well, you've been busy. And how does the budget look to you this year, the next budget?
Our communities, I know that Gary's community and our communities, we have money. It's tight. We've just seen in the paper, the Weekly's been telling us that the sales tax revenue is flat, and that is true. We're seeing that, and sales tax is one of the big ticket items for the community. So we know that we have no additional money to spend, but we'll fit within that. But Menlo Park is endowed well financially, and so we'll continue on with our programs. We're not going to start any new initiatives, but we'll continue to the implementation phase of both smart growth and our recreational program.
I read those stories too about sales tax being flatter in all the communities, even Mountain View next door to us, and I didn't understand if that means because the last few years have been very good. So the fact that it didn't go up beyond last year, I mean, wasn't that sort of expected that you can't keep jumping at 5% or more? So was it a real surprise to have less of a jump than the previous years? Or, I mean, did it cause you to worry about how many services you provide yet, or is it still
It was not a major surprise to us because years 96, 97, and 98 were so hot in this area with the exploding internet economy that we knew that at some point the economy would slow down slightly and that we would be looking at flat growth. And so we're not overly concerned. And the reality is that in Palo Alto, Stanford Shopping Center, downtown are booming. I think we are in the process of seeing, we're fortunate in that California Avenue is being revitalized as well. And so the economy here is very strong. And if I can use that to segue into a brief comment or two about our budget, I think we faced the very same situation which Menlo Park faces this year. We'll approve a budget Monday night. There were not significant issues associated with this budget. We'll add a couple of staff positions. We'll be able to add more money to the reserve. Actually, the most significant issue which emerged during the budget discussions had to do with senior golf course fees.
Senior fees. We're seeing that too.
And it's a classic municipal budgetary issue. I mean, you will, $40 million expenditures on utilities and public works will sail through with nary a comment by the elected officials or the public, and we'll spend 3.5 hours arguing over a $15,000 expenditure, generally in community services, or we'll spend the same amount of time talking about fee increase. Now, I fully expect that a compromise is going to be reached on the senior golf
that was a $15,000 issue? Is that?
Well, I forget exactly what the amount, but it's somewhere in that range, yes.
Well, I forgot to mention in the beginning that this is a live show. So if you are a senior golfer out there, you can join us by calling the number that will appear on the screen. And if you have any other questions for the two mayors that we are joined by today, then call in and join the discussion. We will, however, be going to some video inserts when our MPAC interns went to the farmers markets in both Menlo Park and Palo Alto last Saturday and collected some comments and questions for the two of you and actually for Mayor Jones as well. So we'll save his. Let me just tell the viewers that if you saw Gary in the last hour on the soccer program, he didn't go through a costume change and suddenly appear on this set. That was taped a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Right.
But you do have a pretty well-known soccer Jones, right?
Absolutely. I have a real passion for soccer.
So if you have to segue into some soccer statements today.
I'd be happy to talk about Women's World Cup.
All right, we may get there today. And callers can feel free to ask Mayor Fazzino about World Soccer as well. The first video question, we'll get that queued up and watch it on the monitor.
You want to make a comment or two about what's happening in Palo Alto besides the budget?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We didn't get to the rest of your update. I'm a little informal because it's Saturday morning.
Well, I think we're all feeling very informal this morning, and actually my list is not that much different than Paul's. I mean, obviously Monday night, the most important item on our agenda is approval of the budget for the next fiscal year.
But you'll be spending about $103 million in a single evening.
Right.
So how does that feel?
After 15 years, you become numb to it. And the fact of the matter is that we have a very well-managed budget and I think a very well-managed community, largely because of the outstanding work that our city manager and city staff do. So we're very comfortable with what's before us, and as I indicated earlier, there will not be a significant discussion over the larger issues, but an awful lot of conversation about issues like golf fees. We have been very fortunate over the last couple of years in that our utility staff has done an excellent job in being prepared for, or getting prepared for the era of utilities deregulation. As you know, 12 to 15% of our general fund revenues over the years has come from profits from our utility system. In addition to that, our customers, because of our municipal utility, pay electricity costs 40 to 50% below PG&E customers in neighboring communities. And at the same time, we are very concerned about the prospect of losing our major customers to PG and PG&E, Enron, and other private, investor-owned utilities as a result of the state approving utility deregulation. And so far, we've been able to retain each of our major utility customers, and that says a lot for the outstanding work that our utility staff has done. The other big issue on Monday night is second reading approval of the historic preservation ordinance.
I thought you might give us a tip, an insider tip on where that vote is going to go.
I fully expect that the council will approve the historic preservation ordinance on Monday night. There'll be some discussion over whether or not the council should place it on the ballot.
That's the one that I wondered.
Yeah, my prediction is that the council will not do that. And I personally don't have a major problem putting it on the ballot, but I don't think the council wants to do that. In fact, I would suggest that instead of placing it on the November ballot, we place it on the March 2000 ballot, because that would allow the ordinance to be in effect for several months and allow the incentives to kick in. And I think it's important that people have the opportunity to understand how and witness how the incentives work, which is a very important part of the ordinance. I believe we have approved a fair ordinance. It represents a compromise. It focuses on those homes which are truly historic. We've inserted much more flexibility into the ordinance in terms of renovation of homes. We've also allow decisions to be made to renovate or demolish homes for economic reasons. We have put a number of significant financial incentives in the ordinance as well, including elimination of or waiver of the city portion of the property tax, elimination of any building fee associated with historic preservation, historic renovation.
I'm going to cut you off because I imagine we're going to get a call, and you're going to want to be able to list these things.
Oh, just one more item is the transfer fee. Elimination of the city portion of the property transfer tax once the property is sold. Significant financial incentives. So I feel very comfortable
that there's enough voluntary incentives to make people keep attention to keeping the design in conformance with community sort of historical standards.
In fact, I believe in a year's time people will be clamoring to be placed on the historic register.
That's interesting, given all the... We do have a phone call, but I just wanted to ask, Paul, do you have a historic homes ordinance? How do you look at what's happened in Palo Alto the last the last year or so?
We have a residential character issue, and we have a compatibility issue, but it's not really a historic preservation issue. So we seem, and I think that was one of the sub-themes that you probably saw that confused the historic portion of your ordinance, is to mix them. We do have some design issues. We call them monster homes. We have a monster home problem. And then outside of the scope of monster home, there's really just the design issue of the home, and does it fit in with the existing design or compatibility with the residential neighborhood.
And in fact, if I may admit to a mistake, as a good Catholic boy, I often do, I think we did make a mistake early on in not separating the issues of historic preservation from this broader concern about residential character, monster homes.
Right, so you're feeling like the larger issue is monster home, mega home.
Which is an issue that we have to deal with on a parallel track. And in fact, once we did separate those issues, I think the historic preservation ordinance development process went much more smoothly.
Well, we'll get back to that because I'd like to hear more about the incentives around those kind of huge home building that so many people are doing with their houses. But let's go to our first caller. This is Mark on the phone for which mayor, Mark? Hello.
Gary.
You want to talk to Gary?
Uh-huh.
Go ahead, ask your question or make your comment.
Yes, hi, Gary. I had volunteered to be the medicinal marijuana agent for Palo Alto, if you recall. And I had showed you the voter results on the Compassionate Use Act, showing 76% of Palo Alto voters supported the Compassionate Use Act. I have also provided a lot of scientific information to yourself and to Pat Dwyer, Ted Leppard, Anna Eshu, and I recently supplied it to a doctor at Roche and Dr. Jim Young at Alza, who makes the nicotine patch. And I just wanted to find out what the current status is. I did see that there was a Supreme Court ruling that individuals cannot sue the state or city officials under federal law, and it seems like the only law that is holding back patients from getting their needed medications are federal laws. And I was wondering, does the city have the intent to try and enforce federal law on this issue, or what is the city's posture on supporting the voter results of 76% approval of the Compassionate Use Act?
Compassionate Use Act?
Well, Mark's referring to, and I know Mark, we've met on a couple of occasions, and I mean, he is a tireless advocate in support of use of medicinal marijuana. And you may recall that a couple of years ago, California voters approved Proposition 215, which would allow medical use of marijuana. I supported that measure. I think a number of us, on the council and within city government support the concept of the measure. The reality is that we feel hamstrung by federal government unwillingness to allow medical use of marijuana. But I think the larger issue is the state. And we do not view this as a city issue per se. The city is not in the healthcare business. Under state law, counties have the responsibility to handle healthcare issues.
Is there any chance that a city might make a statement to the state in support of?
Well, I would certainly, yes. And in fact, Mark has met with our police chief as well as with our city attorney, and I've talked to both the chief and the attorney. Again, they too are sympathetic to the concept of medical use of marijuana, but until we receive what we believe is the right, the prerogative to move ahead by either the state or the county, we feel hamstrung.
But I thought the state had kind of, once Dan Lundgren was no longer the Attorney General, I thought the state
interestingly, that Bill Lockyer has, and I think that Bill Lockyer, as the state Attorney General, personally supports the provisions of the mandate under Prop 215, but he too feels very nervous about moving ahead unless the federal government is willing to support him.
Even though the state has, citizens of California have passed an initiative, that's pretty odd.
It's a very political issue. Let me.
Is Mark on the line?
Yes, can I make another comment?
Mark, are you suffering from something that by smoking marijuana it really relieves the pain?
Yes, absolutely. I have a number of conditions. I've got 2 herniated discs. I've also got a sleeping disorder, and I've got a form of mental illness. So it provides relief for all the 3 of the things. And I've tried a number of pharmaceutical drugs. I get my treatment at Stanford, and in fact have received approval from one of the doctors at Stanford to use the marijuana, in consideration of the fact that I've tried so many different medications, including narcotics for my back, Valiums, a variety of antidepressants.
Okay.
And I'm really trying to promote research more than anything. And like I said, I got a lot of interest from Roche and from Alza. Alza manufactures the nicotine patch. And of course, that would be the most natural way to deliver marijuana without having to smoke it, which could cause, some lung damage. Theoretically, it's never been proven to do so, but
well, it seems. Thanks for your call, Mark.
One last comment.
Okay, make it quick though.
Attorney General Lockyer suggested, that advocates and police chiefs or police departments get together to make the law work, and I've been trying to do that, but as yet, I have not been able to make the law work with Police Chief Dwyer. Even though I agree with Gary that he is very sympathetic, but sympathy doesn't do much for the cancer patients or the AIDS patients or the other patients who feel that this medicine is the best medicine for them.
It seems like when an issue falls on the shoulders of people who are already sick to try to get social change, you're adding even more of a challenge to that process. But any comments, last comments on this?
Well, I would recommend that Mark and others seize the initiative and try to pull together the police chiefs in the county and the county supervisors to address this issue. And if I felt that the county were willing to step forward and play a leadership role on this issue and, in essence, protect us, the cities within the county, legally, then I would be much more comfortable about moving ahead and supporting its use here in Palo Alto. But everyone is nervous, I think, at the local. We simply don't have the resources, legally or otherwise, to take on the federal government or even or the state government. And I'm concerned that we're simply not in a position to act alone, even though we are very sympathetic to it.
Are there any other cities you know of that have even made a statement from their councils that we'd like to see medical marijuana?
Well, San Francisco, of course, and
Oakland.
And Oakland.
Marin County.
But again, San Francisco is a combined city-county. A somewhat different position than Palo Alto.
Santa Clara County renewed the ordinance last year allowing medical marijuana dispensaries. And I talked to Joe Simidian about it, and also the people at the Department of Health, and have received a lot of support. But as far as I do, that's too far for the scope that I'm prepared to go with. But I would like to act in setting up a model here in Palo Alto that we could show, as we are leaders in this community, this state, and in this country and the world, that would be a workable model, and hopefully we could develop that.
And short of that, would you feel good about the city councils making a statement, or that's just not enough teeth?
No, political statements aren't needed. The need is to get medicine of people's choice, legal medicine under state law, to patients who need it.
Okay. Well, we're going to move on. Thanks for bringing this issue to light, Mark.
Thank you.
The next thing we'll do is go to a farmer's market participant and see what kind of question we have on tape.
Well, I think in terms of San Francisco Creek, I think they're doing the right thing there. I think they're making an effort to clean it up. I'm really pleased to see the steelhead run coming back, and they're working to put in fish ladders and that kind of thing, and I'm real pleased about that. The homelessness problem under the bridge, I think they're addressing as best they can. It's a politically correct, incorrect type of issue. It's not just a homeless problem, it's all the stuff they leave down there and gets washed away in the winter and tears out the creek and wrecks the environment, and that's a concern.
Talking about the creek that you both share, we both share as far as Menlo Park and Palo Alto, and there is an issue, I guess, that's been brought to both councils regarding what happens to the creek when a lot of homeless people use it to camp. And are there comments about what he said about creek management?
Well, homeless in the creek has been, I guess, an issue maybe for 30 years. I mean, it's in the summer particularly, it's an encampment, or has been an encampment. We increased visibility to it about 1.5 years ago and started clearing it out. It's widely acknowledged both in the environmental community and I think in the cities that the creek is not an appropriate place for the homeless to be living. And the greater problem of homelessness is something actually we're working in other areas as well. So there has been a real effort to go in and police the creek to relieve homelessness there, and that's ongoing. And that continues, and I guess there's been
Is that on both sides of the creek?
Well, I give credit to Menlo Park because it really took on a very difficult challenge by itself and moved homeless out of the creek. It took a lot of political hits for doing so, but the reality was that you had a significant environmental and health issue. And we were all standing aside looking in the other direction, hoping it would go away. I went down and visited that site on several occasions, and I mean, there was unbelievable health problems, let me put it that way. I won't get any more graphic than that. And we did assist Menlo Park to some degree when people were moved out of the creek. They were moved out of there with compassion. In fact, every person who was moved out of there was offered a shelter opportunity. Now, not everyone took it, which is a whole other
but shelter
issue
where?
associated with the homeless.
Shelter where?
Clara Mateo or other shelters
Okay.
in the area.
We had a show where a number of homeless people came on, it must have been a year ago, and talked about the difference of living on the creek versus an SRO, a single room occupancy, even if, and some of them were able to raise the $350 a month for the single room. But they said, you know, you're not allowed to have friends over in the evening, you're not allowed to cook in your room, and we can do that at the creek. We feel like we're more human there. We really do have a home, because it didn't feel like home. There are so many issues related to the homeless, and I know we probably won't get a call because I don't think many of them have cell phones and are getting cable television, but the issue of finding centers and services for the homeless, I know, is a difficult one for probably both councils, and it seems like you're both trying to figure out ways, but in Palo Alto it seems like there's less going on in terms of finding an actual location in Palo Alto, and also in the recent decision not to fund the urban ministry with the federal funds.
Well, that's not true. No, we did fund the urban ministry. Well, again, assuming the budget is approved Monday night based upon the Finance Committee's recommendations, we will provide approximately $32,000 of support for
I guess
urban ministry.
what stood out to me was that the amounts of money went away from actual shelter and services to the homeless and into other needed areas of housing when we were talking about the federal block funds. Am I wrong on that?
No, we're continuing to provide the same level of support for shelter, shelter, food, homeless worker programs. The controversy a couple of months ago over federal funding through the Community Block Grant program had to do with support of the urban ministry management.
Right.
Urban ministry administration.
Right. And if you don't fund urban ministry, is there another way to get shelter and services to the homeless that you found?
Well, you also don't want to fund mismanagement either. And the council felt, in fact, the Community Block Grant Committee, as well as the Finance Committee, felt very strongly that urban ministry needs to take major steps over the next 12 to 24 months to improve its management practices. We are not going to spend city money in ways which aren't appropriate. And
it was studied very well. I'm just wondering about the homeless services.
So what we did, the compromise that was reached was to provide half the funding for urban ministry management and do it through the city budget rather than through the federal program, so that there will be a closer working relationship between city staff and urban ministry. We believe we'll be in a better position to assist them into improving their management practices so that they can do a much better job of providing services like shelter, space, food, and vocational assistance and other programs, which are absolutely critical.
But I know that there's also been this movement from the Peninsula Interfaith Council to try to get a shelter or services at least somewhere around downtown Palo Alto, and that hasn't found much support yet.
Well,
or am I wrong? Go ahead.
Yeah, the PIA and its working group, which actually the working group represents a number of organizations, including PIA, has been hard at work trying to identify a permanent site for a homeless opportunities center, which would provide a variety of services, including temporary shelter. They struck out in finding a site on El Camino Real. It appears that they've not been successful in securing a site on High Street. I'm sure Paul will want to speak for a minute or two about this issue, but there is space available for a temporary facility at the VA site on Willow Road in Menlo Park.
Right.
And so they have decided to move forward with that, which I think is an excellent idea, and continue to work with the three mayors and as well as the city councils of the three cities to identify a permanent site. I continue to support the concept of a permanent opportunities center. I am still open to the possibility of that center being in Palo Alto. At the same time, they and I recognize the difficulties and perhaps political impossibility associated with placing that center near or in a residential area. And so we intend to work very closely with them to see if we can't identify a site, along El Camino or Alma, which is removed from residential areas. The first site that they looked at between the Sheraton Hotel and the Medical Foundation was an excellent location.
Well, what about the Bill Young auto place? I mean, that's really in a mostly industrial, light industry area.
But it's a half block from a residential area, and I think it would have been very difficult for us to put it there.
Well, it's close to Alma.
And the final analysis, it just didn't work financially.
All right. Well, I don't know. It sounds a little difficult to me. If you're homeless, you're not wanted near the downtown, but that's where you want to be. So that's a very difficult proposition. We're gonna go to a break so we can all drink some coffee, and then when we get back, I'm gonna give a Talmudic lesson. Actually, we'll hear from Paul about what's going on with the VA Center and the homeless. We'll get some more from our farmers market questioners, and I'll give the Talmudic, since I'm the good Jewish boy, I will talk about the Eruv and what that proposal has brought forth. So we'll be right back after this message.
Explore life's mysteries. Grasp the slippery existential moment. Meet others at the cosmic crossroads of meaning when you sign up for a class in video production at MPAC in Palo Alto. Initiate yourself as artist, communicator, or as a studio crew member on volunteer productions. Some call it community TV. We call it that too.
And we're back. This is Border Crossings, where we talk to regional policymakers, produced by Mid-Peninsula Access Corporation, and I'm joined by Mayors Fazzino and Collachi of, respectively, Palo Alto and Menlo Park. And we were discussing services to the homeless and locating the thorny political side of locating a place for homeless people to get their services. And I'm wondering what went through your mind, and where is Menlo Park on these issues at this point?
Before I talk about the temporary or potential temporary location at the VA, I think it might be important to kind of just jump out a little bit and talk about the problem of homelessness. And I'm not a policy expert on it, but I've learned a little bit in my time. And I think when we talk about homelessness, it runs the same risk that when we talked about historic compatibility and neighborhood preservation, that there are a number of different sub-communities that are intermingled in the homeless community that actually would require different sets of services and attention and those kinds of things. So I want to kind of go through that a little bit. My understanding is there's some voluntary homelessness, which you talked about as kind of a lifestyle choice. There's also some mental illness in the community. And then there's also individuals who have fallen out and would like to get back into the general social web and need help. And I think in addressing the homeless community, we would do different things in order to address different facets of that homeless community. And so when we look at homeless services, particularly the services now that we're offering in Menlo Park and Palo Alto, we have services such as being able to give showers. So we open up our Burgess facility to make shower facilities available to help people trying to get back on their feet who have jobs or are working or are taking temporary work but need hygienic services. We also have another called the Shelter Network up in the Flood Park neighborhood, which is temporary living situation. And I think it handles, again, the community getting back on their feet, which is looking in between a homeless community and a community that's about ready to actually be able to pay rent and live in an SRO type of situation. So that's another community. We have a solution in the Flood Park neighborhood of Menlo Park. They're now redesigning their facility and will be expanding. This facility that's being looked at the VA center, my understanding is it's a support day type service, and I'm not exactly what services are being offered, but it's not a housing service. It's really like a help you for a day kind of service. It would be located next to the Clara Mateo facility on the Veterans site. It's a temporary facility or to provide some niche service into that homeless community that I described there. Our council hasn't really, we looked at it once, we had some concerns about it, but I think there was great sympathy to doing it. We did hear from some of the residents in the nearby neighborhood. Their concern, I think, is not so much that they're concerned about this facility per se, but that the three facilities that I've talked about are all in that one neighborhood area. And so there's some question about the density of homeless services in that particular area. I've been back in that section of the VA. I actually was arrested back there. It's a beautiful area. It was a park, and I thought I had...
Can we digress for a moment?
I thought I had found my own private park, and I rode back there one day with my bicycle, and I put my bike against the tree, and I was laying out in the grass, and the federal police arrested me.
Really?
Yes, they did, and so I'm personally confident that it's actually quite secure.
Did this occur in the last 30 days?
No, not the last 30, but the last 2 months or so. I thought I had my own private park there, and the federal police let me know that I don't. But it does border, there's a fence between the nearby neighborhoods, so there is some residential. I believe that portion of the residence is actually county, but there are Menlo Park neighborhoods that are close by. My feeling is that it's secure. Having visited with the federal police, I know that they do patrol that area. Clara Mateo was there. I found no signs of agitation or any of the things that I think neighbors would and should be concerned about. But I do understand this density issue. So we will revisit it and look at it. I know that what happens on the Veterans site is beyond our jurisdiction, so we have no real say other than to...
Is there a way, if you are homeless and you want to be downtown, Palo Alto or Menlo Park, which I assume, it's hard to know everything, but right. I assume most homeless people do. Is there a way to get back and forth easily to, maybe free bus tokens, for example, to get back and forth to a shelter? Is there any way that you can be the champions of figuring out how to help the homeless, even if the political will is not there for a downtown in either downtown? What can you do to make it work?
Right.
Does that get discussed?
I think the location of the VA site, we all have some questions about it just for that reason, in that it's not really centrally located and it's not really easily accessible in any way, and so that we would have to additionally provide some kind of shuttle service or some kind of transit access in order to either deliver the daytime customers to some other locations where they will receive other services, or just in the downtown areas. And I don't know. We're all getting in the shuttle business right now and are looking for niche shuttle markets, because shuttle is not an easy thing either. And it's very expensive. It's probably $100,000 a shuttle per year. So that is a problem, and I'm not sure what the demand is and what the possibility is of providing shuttle service.
You mentioned a place to get a shower even. Is that something, do we have that in Palo Alto, a place for?
Actually, the YMCA on Ross Road provides showers for homeless people. And back to your question, Elliot, I think the overriding issue for me is not moving the homeless from downtown to the VA. The overriding issue for me is making sure that these individuals have access to critical services, whether it be shelter, food, showers, transportation.
Right.
And so Paul and I have discussed this issue, and I certainly support the possibility of a special shuttle or a shuttle tied into our hopefully soon to be integrated shuttle system, which would move those folks who are in need of these services from and to the places they need to be.
Well, I think that it's good to know that it's on your radar screens. I think that as prosperous as our communities are, the prosperity almost creates an underclass as well, people that can't keep up with the rents. And we will go to another phone line in a moment, but I want to go to a video first. Let's get another question from the farmers market, and then after that the phone, and then after that the A-roof. Here we go.
I find that the police services are rather territorial, and this is based on personal experience, and they have a tendency not to cooperate with one another. I mean, if something occurs in, say, one side of the 101, the police from the other side of the 101 won't go over, and they care less about it.
So we're going to have to wait until somebody...
I heard it a little.
I think it had to do with police services on, in East Palo Alto as opposed to Palo Alto. And again, unless I misheard it, I think the questioner seemed to conclude that there was very little interest on this side of the freeway about what goes on in East Palo Alto. And the reality is just the opposite. I mean, the fact is that for 8 years, our 3 police departments, East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and Palo Alto, have been working together very closely. We had the emergency drug team in place from 92 to 95. Palo Alto actually gives our older police vehicles to East Palo Alto. We have a mutual aid agreement with both Menlo Park and East Palo Alto. When there is a crisis or potential crisis situation, we will step in and assist each other. And in fact, one of the issues that we're addressing during our regional mayors meetings this year is the whole issue of integrated, almost seamless police services across the 3 jurisdictions. So I think we've done a very good job in this area.
And yeah, so there's a lot of regional work that precedes even the flurry of activity that you as mayors have initiated regionally there in terms of police services.
And if I might add, Menlo Park does not suffer from the problem of having a different jurisdiction on the other side of 101. Menlo Park goes all the way to Fremont.
Yes.
And in our community east of 101 is called Bellhaven. The access problem there is not a problem that we have a problem wanting to provide services there. We very much want to provide services there. In the afternoon, sometimes Willow and University and Marsh are so congested, in fact, that it's very difficult to get the police onto that side. So what we've done is we have a police substation in our Bellhaven neighborhood, and we specifically and intentionally deploy police in the early part of the late afternoon to make sure that calls are available there. My understanding is that 40% of our calls into our police station do come from our Bellhaven neighborhood. We've also relocated fire out there on the other side of an avenue called Chilco. The Bellhaven neighborhood is a redevelopment agency, and that gives us special tax laws with property taxes, and because we have large employers like Sun Microsystems out there, we actually have a good deal of money to spend. There was an article the other day in the Weekly, we have about 18 million. So we've been providing a high level of police services in the Bellhaven neighborhood. We did conduct our biannual community survey recently and got lower marks than we have in the recent past. So we want to go out and take another look and see if we're not doing it right out there, what we need to be doing. But it's on our radar screen. We've got police service out there. We have community and county services out there specifically, and we're very concerned there. And if this is we didn't hear the caller, so we don't know whether it's an East Palo Alto specific, but we are actively working and have been with East Palo Alto to the extent possible to make sure that we're servicing those communities and working together. So we've got a good story to tell, and as public officials, we know we've always got to do a better story. But I think we're doing well.
Great, and so we're going to switch now to one of the phone callers, and this is a live show, so you're welcome to call in to either Mayor or both. Bill, are you on the line?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead with your question.
I'm sorry, I turned the sound down. I have a question for all three of you, actually, Elliot and Gary and Paul. I have a very high regard for the work you guys have done on MPAC, and just, you know, you're doing a great job now, and I can see that that could be developed into the future as really a community channel and so on. But my question is relating to the potential sale of Cable Co-op to TCI and to AT&T. What I'm concerned about is, do you have real assurances from AT&T that MPAC will be able to function and develop its own programming in the future if the sale were to go through?
So is the question to me?
Actually, it's to all three of you.
Okay.
I think you're sort of an expert witness, but I know Gary and Paul have also given some consideration to this issue and have even discussed with AT&T or the lawyers or whatever this kind of an issue.
Well, I can give a brief answer about other communities where TCI, AT&T operates. It's a delicate issue for me, I'll just be honest, because Cable Co-op is not sitting at this table, and I know that their board very much wants this sale to go through after determining that they could not make the amount of upgrading necessary to keep up with what this community really needs for telecommunications. Now, I know there's other proposals on the table, and I'm not going to comment on what's the best proposal, because I can say about community television that TCI and AT&T is a recent owner of TCI, so they don't have a track record, but TCI is not a friend of community television. They don't say we really want to see an active amount of locally produced programming. However, TCI has vast financial resources, and in recent refranchising negotiations with TCI-owned franchises, Monterey, Mountain View, just nearby ones, there's been tremendous concessions, one from TCI, and I assume with AT&T they have even more resources. So where the cities had a tremendous resolve to sit at the table as long as TCI's lawyers were willing to sit at the table, they've come away with significant resources for community programming. But you ask a great question. It is troubling on a macro level to think that one corporation will have so many communities that they own the telecommunications infrastructure for. That's all I can say at this point, really, from my own knowledge.
My question was, that didn't really answer the question specifically.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if either of the mayors or you have had any assurances from...
We have not met with AT&T. We did ask Cable Co-op if they would enable us to meet with AT&T, TCI, and they said they would, but so far we haven't heard back.
I see. Thank you very much. I'll take, if there's any more answer from the mayors, and I am sort of interested in hearing their comment, I'll take it on the air. Thank you very much.
I want to kind of do two different things. I want to kind of jump back up and just let the viewers know that Cable Co-op is the franchise, is the local franchise, and then MPAC is a separate entity which provides for local access on channel 6.
6 and 77.
Right. So you're actually separate entities.
We're a nonprofit agency that was established by the joint powers as part of the franchise agreement. And no matter who takes over that franchise agreement, there will still be the ability of the cities to designate an agency like us. The question, I guess, is how much financial support might be there, whether it's Cable Co-op, which...
Well, that's one question. And then another issue is under federal law, there has to be some allowance. So the local access is required under federal law.
The channels can, under federal law, can be required by the cities.
Okay,
but no funding is guaranteed, except for the 5% franchise fee that cable companies pay to the cities.
Right, and then we did sit with AT&T, and Gary, you may want to comment on what we talked about as far as trying to make sure and ensure that we were going to have not only local access, but more of it.
Well, we had, as you probably read in a couple of our papers, Paul and I met with Leo Hindery, who is the president of, I guess, what is now called AT&T Broadband, rather than TCI. And I think that name is being buried. And he made what I considered to be a fairly strong commitment to the concept of preservation and even enhancement of public access and local origination program. I think, again, this was an informal meeting, informal private meeting, but I think that if this sale moves forward, and again, that is Cable Co-op's decision, the cities have a very prescribed set of role and responsibilities in this area. If it moves forward, I think we may well end up with a system within a system. I think we will have increased funding. I think we will enjoy more channels. And I believe there's another point that we made very strongly to him is that we want public access programming to continue to be on prime channels, like Channel 6 and Channel 16, not become channels 245 and 247 between the Golf Channel and
watching paint dry.
Exactly, right. And so I was encouraged by what I heard from him. I will say that there is no issue more important to the city of Palo Alto in terms of what we ask for during the transfer of sale discussions, or for that matter, I should say, during the franchise renewal agreement discussions, which will begin soon after.
And Paul, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, there is. What's being sold to us, without evaluating whether or not that's going to come to pass, is that the revenues being offered, or the amount of money being offered by AT&T Broadband to Cable Co-op, is in excess of the debts of Cable Co-op, to the extent that they would be able to endow an entity. That's one of the proposals, is with the surplus funding, an entity would be endowed, and that entity would become an additional potential public access provider. And that sounds pretty good. There are issues, as you know, is that it could possibly be a competitor to MPAC. And so the way in which MPAC and this new potential entity could be resolved to actually create a happier family of more endowed public access. So the good news is, if it does work out, we could have a well-endowed, a much better endowed, financially endowed, more secure local access provider. The bad news is we don't know what the subscribers are going to do, because they're in charge of that surplus, and they may decide to take it back rather than endow something. And or there could be a competitive kind of issue where MPAC itself, which doesn't really have leverage other than the goodwill, I think, of the councils and the community, may not, may be treated as a stepchild. And so that's a concern that I have. And so these are all to be played out. There are opportunities, I think, that could actually make it an extremely well-endowed local access, in fact, better endowed than it has been, in a much richer and more channels. And there are also the possibilities for squabbling and all those kinds of things. So we've got work to do.
Yeah, I know we have interests in this matter. We don't want to end up competing with another agency that makes programs when the amount of equipment and grant money and human resources who volunteered, and these are volunteers actually bringing this program out today, are in high demand. However, I'd like to say this is public access television, and I really hope people who have whatever interest, if Gary and I were guests on a show about this and then got calls saying, well, you didn't present our side against a sale. Please use the channels and make more programming about these issues, so it doesn't, MPAC is not in a position to make that kind of programming given our own interests in it.
Right.
But I would like to move to the lighthearted...
If I can say one more item about this. Let me assure the viewers that the city of Palo Alto, as part of the cable JPA, will not rush to a decision on the issue of transfer of sale. This is not going to occur in the dead of night during the middle of the summer. There will be plenty of opportunity for cable co-op subscribers and others to participate in the JPA discussions regarding the transfer of sale. I expect those discussions to occur in September or October of this year.
Well, in fact, the Joint Powers through Palo Alto hired a consultant to really go
the Buskey Group.
Community sector to community sector and poll everybody on what kind of, and we have a large number of people, and I bet in Menlo Park too, who are anxious to link internet usage to cable as well, and rightfully so. It's I think we'll revisit this issue quite a number of times. There were all sorts of issues I had on my notes that we didn't get to today. The hour flew by. But we did ask each of you to tell us something about your most favorite T-shirt. This is Mayor's Eat Oats is a segment of the program where we get to know our mayors a little more intimately. So, Paul, tell us what your T-shirts are that you brought.
Okay, well, I brought...
We only have a minute left. So.
I brought 2 T-shirts. I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to bring a favorite personal one or a favorite political one.
Can we get the camera in tight on...
So my favorite political one, on the front it says WTC, which stands for Willows Traffic Committee. And then on the back we have a map of the Willows neighborhood, which shows all the streets and traffic calming devices. And this is from my early days in 1992 when I first got into public service on the Willows Traffic Committee, and it was a very visible and contentious issue, but we had T-shirts generated, and I've always liked this T-shirt and I continue to wear it. It's my exercise T-shirt.
Where did you get arrested?
Up north over here,
okay.
On this little north sign. My personal T-shirt is one given to me by my wife, who teaches meditation, and it's got a nice big candle and a flame in the middle of it, and a circle of all the symbols of the world's religions on the outside, including a kind of an everyman's religion, whatever your religion happens to be, and it basically goes to, I guess, the inner light that unites all of them. But I think it's a wonderful logo. Beautiful. And it's a wonderful symbol.
Gary, let's see your shirt.
Not surprising.
The soccer
U.S. World Cup T-shirt from 1994. Bought this on July 4th, 1994, when the U.S. lost to Brazil. We may well have a U.S.-Brazil reprise here on July 4th, Women's World Cup at Stanford Stadium, and I hope everyone will come out.
Well, thank you for coming out this morning on your weekend day. I know being a mayor includes lots of weekend work, but we really appreciate that you make yourself available to callers and viewers out there on the cable system. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Join us again. You can see replays of Border Crossings on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. on Channel 6. Thank you.